Welcome to the 29th installment of ESPN Honolulu Fan Friday Talk Story. I'm your host, Tiff Wells. With me today, he's the only four-time first-team All-Big West selection, and he's also a two-time AVCA All-American second-teamer, none other than the redshirt senior middle blocker himself, Uncle Pat. From men's volleyball, the top-ranked team in the country, Patrick Gasman. Patrick, welcome to Talk Story.
Thanks, Tiff.
Thanks for joining us. Now, first off, Pat, is it Pat or is it Patrick, or do you have a preference?
I prefer Pat.
Okay, well, we will go by Pat.
Rolls off the tongue a little better.
It does roll off the tongue a little bit better, so we'll go with Pat. Okay, Pat, first off, what sports did you play growing up?
Oh, I was just like every kid, played all kinds of sports growing up. I played soccer, baseball, and then when I got to middle school, I played a little bit of football, but they didn't let me play in sixth grade because I was too big. Afraid I was going to hurt the other kids. They were right. Then I played water polo, played that for a few years, and then I got into volleyball when I was also really young, and I stuck with that throughout my career. And then my senior year of high school, the football coach came up to me and asked me to play. And my team went 1-10, and the one game we won was in quadruple overtime off a QB sneak. So we weren't great, and that ended my football career there. And now I just play volleyball full time, and I got the great opportunity to come to UH and play for Charlie, and now it's 6 years later.
You talked about water polo. I'm curious, what position were you when you played water polo?
I was the goalie.
You were the goalie. All right. We know for volleyball, you weren't always a middle blocker. What position did you start off with when you first began volleyball?
So my first position was libero, because there wasn't a age group for me when I was 12 around my area to play volleyball. There was only like one other kid that played volleyball when I was 12. And so I got to try out for the 15s team. And I remember at that tryout, I was like terrified, but I was getting a lot of digs because I was just so scared to move that I would just let the ball hit me and the ball would go up. And the coach asked me, he's like, "Hey, do you want to be our libero?" And I was like, yes. So I was libero for a 15s team. And then after that, I joined another club and was able to play on a 13s team the next year, and was able to start my career as a middle. Yeah.
It's funny when you look on social media between yourself, Rada Parapunov, and also Gage Worsley. There's a couple hashtags out there on social media, and a couple that come to mind. One is make Gage an outside hitter, but also get more digs than Gage. Yep. Who gets more digs than Gage, you or Rado?
Rado gets more digs than Gage purely because of opportunity. Give me 3 rotations in the back row, and it'd be no contest.
We've talked about Gage Worsley. You've played both with Joe and Gage here at UH, but also through the high school circuit with club at Pac Rim. What type of impact has Roger Worsley had on your growth and development in volleyball?
I owe Roger quite a bit. When I first found out I was like decent at volleyball, I was like 16, and I went to this volleyball camp, and a bunch of coaches started contacting me after that. And then I met Joe. I got to know Joe. Well, I've always played against Joe and Gage growing up. But then I got to really know them at this camp and play on their teams and stuff. And they asked me, like, you should come play for our team. And I'm like, I want to come play for your guys' team. So my 17th year, I finished the regular club season and joined them for the summer. And that summer, I think I, like, doubled whatever skill I had in volleyball. Like, Roger really, like, grinded out, like, what it was to be a middle, like, what it was to make a blocking move, what it was to make a transition move, and what it was to hit wrist away, hit cutback. Like, we spent hours and hours and hours, like, grinding out these, like, little details that are so important to being a middle. And I owe him so much for that, to, like, really, like, fine tune, like, my size into, like, some, and something that looks a little bit like speed.
You mentioned earlier about all the sports you played growing up. When did you know specifically that volleyball was going to be your sport to get you through college?
So probably when I was like, I always knew I was better than other people at volleyball, like in my hometown, but I didn't think it was like an actual opportunity because I wasn't on like great teams. I wasn't like winning tournaments and stuff. So I think I realized like my sophomore year when I went to all these camps and like the UC Irvine coach, David Niffen, was like, hey, like, we're going to start looking at you. Like, if you look at what's your parents' email? Like, so started talking to them, and that was like an eye-opening experience for me because at the time my brother was being recruited for volleyball back when he was like looking for a school to go to, and we would always go to UC Merced, and the coach there was like scouting me, and I thought like, oh, UC Merced, like that's where I'm gonna go. Like, he says he wants me to play there. Like, I don't think I'm good enough to play anywhere else. Like, so that was just like kind of my sophomore year of high school, like when I was 16, when I started getting recruited by all these other teams and realizing like, oh, like I could actually have a future in this.
You're listed at 6'10" in the media guide. Have you always been this tall?
What do you mean? Like,
I guess the question would be when did you have that big growth spurt, or did you know you were going to be this tall?
Okay, so I always knew I was going to be tall. I was always taller than all the other kids in my classes. Let's see. Like, I remember my nickname in third grade was like 5'2". And then I was like 6 feet in 8th grade, and then 6'3" beginning my freshman year of high school, and then 6'9" at the end of my sophomore year. And that was probably my big growth spurt. And that was a pretty painful year for my knees. But yeah.
You mentioned on a Warrior cast with Colton Cowell, Rada Patapunov, you guys joined Eric Matthews that was recently released within the last few days. And there was an instance you brought up with the aunties in the corner who had been a fixture at UH volleyball matches. And they've given you a nickname, and this nickname has been with you since your freshman year back in 2016. For those that don't know, can you tell what that nickname is and how did it come about?
So the nickname the aunties gave me, that give us the Liz after every game, they call me Scooter because my freshman year I had a little accident on a skateboard and ended up having a season-ending injury in the middle of October, and it's all my fault, no one else's. And I, instead of using crutches, I still had to get around campus, and like instead of like having someone drive me every day, I decided to get one of those like little scooters, like mobility scooters. I went through like 2 or 3 of them because I would also get a little reckless on those and go down that hill by the dorms really quickly. So yeah, I got one of those scooters, and they coined the term scooter for me. And I've never been able to like get them to switch it to like Uncle Pat or PG-15, whatever the other ones are. They have forever stuck to Scooter.
Do you remember the earliest moments or memories you have of following Hawaii volleyball or watching it when you were growing up in Clovis or in Fresno?
To be honest, I didn't really follow collegiate volleyball all that well when I was in high school. I remember my mom bragging to me. She's like, "Oh, you're going to Hawaii. You know they're the #1 team in the nation right now." I was like, "Oh, really?" Like, I had no idea. Yeah, it was like I started like looking into collegiate volleyball probably like near the end of my senior year of high school, and like following it and like seeing who the good teams were: BYU, Hawaii, UCLA, all those guys.
It came down to UCLA, UC Irvine, and Hawaii. If I have it correct, what led you to come here to Honolulu and play for Hawaii?
There were three or four major reasons. One was the state of Hawaii. My official visit here was just like truly magical, like driving around the east side. And like I distinctly remember driving over Makapu and just seeing like that big drop off in this like vast blue ocean and like this nice beach. And I'm just like, oh my God, that's so cool. And then so location, studies. I really want to do mechanical engineering or engineering. And I think it was not that it wasn't offered at the other schools. It was just like I didn't get the vibe of like how like when I went to UH, like when I was talking about like I want to do engineering, they're like, yeah, we're gonna work like we're gonna work around your education. But like when I got to the other schools, it was more like you're gonna do your best to work around volleyball, and like they like UH really like prioritize like education too. And then playing time was huge also. Taylor Averill was on his way out, and like that's what Charlie said. He wanted me to like replacing him and like set the standard. And like I thought I was doing a pretty good job of that up until the middle of October when I fell off my skateboard. And yeah, so I feel like I was on track to start, and that was huge for me. I love to play and like I love to like contribute, and I thought I was good enough to do so. Then the last one was just scholarship. Yeah.
How tough was it in that 2016 season? Because you were, as head coach Charlie Wade likes to use this quote, don't be a guy, be the guy. And you were the guy in high school. And to sit out that freshman year rehabbing, how tough was it for you that true freshman season having to sit out?
I hated almost every second of it. Not the Hawaii part, but like the having to sit and watch every practice, having to like sit on a mobility bike and just do like the arm exercises for hours. I don't have a lot of fond memories of my true freshman year, mostly because I was just bitter and yeah. I do have a distinct memory of my sophomore year of me talking to some of my friends. And they're like, Patrick, like you're so nice. Like what? Like they were apparently I was rude. Not rude, but like a little bit like, people could tell I was a little bit bitter all the time my freshman year. So yeah, I don't have a lot of great memories of that year.
One of your former teammates, and there have been a lot of them here at your time at UH, Momani Namahoe from the Big Island, back of libero. His senior year, he always said, if you want to get better, the weight room is where it's at. How have you embraced the weight room throughout your years here at UH?
I feel like I'm always I'm not always in the ear of our weight trainers, but like if they tell me something, I'd take it as like as what's the word I'm looking for? Not prophecy. I don't know. I take it as like gospel. Like I know like they're speaking truth. They're speaking like what I need to do to get better. And I feel like I've definitely gotten a lot stronger over the last 6 years. Oh my gosh. And like we've had several different trainers, and I remember that actually part of my true freshman year, me and the trainer did this like German weightlifting program where it was like 10 sets of 10 for like 3 weeks straight. And I remember I got my bench up to like 275, and it was like I raised it like 40 pounds because like like I couldn't stand, so I did a lot of upper body. Yeah, so yeah, I hope I embraced the weight room enough.
2019, of course, a lot of people remember that really, really good team. Of course, Stein von Toberg, Joe Worsley. You guys go on that amazing streak to begin this season, 25-0. You win 74 straight sets. But I want to talk about the Big West Conference Championship tournament match when you guys played Long Beach State. There hadn't been a sellout Stan Sheriff Center since 2003. You guys had one for the senior night, and then to follow that up a week later with the conference, or the 2 weeks later with the conference tournament championship. What is it like to play in front of a sold out Stan Sheriff Center?
It is truly incredible. To be able to like step on the court and like just know that like your ears are like ringing the entire time, because there's just like just so much energy all around you, and you just kind of feed off of it. Like it's so hard to be in a bad mood when you have 10,000 fans screaming. And yeah, it's intoxicating, like how much energy you can feed off the crowd.
Last one here, Pat, before we take the break. When you guys travel to the mainland, and this is pre 2021, when of course there could be fans either here at home or for the road matches. When there is a vocal crowd cheering for you, especially on the road, what is it like when you play on the road and you guys have a crowd that is much larger than the team you're playing at?
I always find it hilarious that like Hawaii will just like have a bunch of people show up that are from the area of the team we're playing, and they are in decked out Hawaii gear, like they have the leis, the everything, and they're cheering for us. And it's just a huge surreal experience to know that like the aloha vibe, the aloha message that we're sending out, like as a university, as a team, as a school, as a state, that reaches so many people, and so many people recognize that, and so come to support us.
Pat, we do need to take the break right here, so stay right there. Along with Pat Gasman from Rainbow Warrior Volleyball, I'm Tiff Wells. You're listening to ESPN the Honolulu Fan Friday Talk Story. Welcome back to episode 29 of ESPN the Honolulu Fan Friday Talk Story. I'm Tiff Wells. We're here with UH Men's Volleyball redshirt senior middle blocker Patrick Gasman. Pat, any funny story from Milan Zarkovic, and what about head coach Charlie Wade?
Funny story. I'm blanking right now. I don't know. Oh, one of my favorite things about Milan is his nicknames he'll give to people, and he plays it off like he doesn't speak English that well, which is a lie. He speaks great English, but he'll accidentally say the wrong name for someone, but we all know who he's talking about. Like right now in our gym, what he currently does is he'll tell Kanai to come play, but he won't call him Kanai. He'll call him Makua or Makana or Mauka. I don't know, but he will not say Kanai. But we all know who he's talking about.
And then what about for Coach Charlie Wade? Any funny story? Anyone that you'll remember specifically?
There's not like, I wouldn't say it's funny, but I would say there's like definitely like Charlie has like these phrases that he says a lot that are just always gonna stick with me. Like I'm never gonna forget them. Like strong with the right, or like good hand on ball, and it's like just something he always like repeats all the time. I don't know how funny that is, but I don't know, it's just something that's always gonna stick with me.
And he's always one that will use his golf terminology, because we always hear when he talks about serving, especially, he'll talk about pulling driver. When you tell Coach Wade that you want to pull driver, what's his initial reaction?
I imagine it's not a great reaction, because I feel like my pull driver kind of loses a lot of accuracy, and I know I can get it up to like 72, but the odds of it going in drop like 30% when I truly pull driver. But another golf term that he uses a lot is pull another club. And it's like when you get a bad toss and you just want to put it in, you will like roll shot it, or not roll shot it, but like place it on the guy you're supposed to serve, like the worst passer, the target for the serving line. Yeah. Charlie does a lot of comparisons between golf, and like we had actually an interesting conversation on the last road trip about like just like the mindset of like the similarities between like going back and serving and playing golf, as like it's like the only individual aspect of like the sport, and it's like only something that you can control. Like how like we talked about that Long Beach game where Colton was out, and it was just like kind of Rado and I just kind of going off for our team right there. But I had a very tough serving night, and we were talking about it, and he said, like sometimes like you just get back there and you don't have it, and you're just like scared that you don't know where the ball is going to go. And that was how I was feeling. I don't know how I got to that mindset. Like I was playing so well that night, and then I just go back to the service line and I just could not. I just didn't know where the ball was going to go. But then I reevaluated later on, and yeah. Another good Milan story is actually from that same CSUN trip. I wouldn't say I'm like the lazy guy on the team, but like I definitely move a little slower when I'm like walking around. I'm not in a rush anymore, really. So I told Charlie was like, maybe we'll skip the serve and pass for the first night against CSUN, and just like show up early to the game and warm up. And I was like, could we come to the serve and pass? And Milan just would not let me forget it, that I chose to come to a practice that we were volunteering out of. And yeah, that's my funny story about Milan and Charlie.
You talked about CSUN, and coincidentally last year was where you guys were when you found out the season was first postponed and then later canceled. Coming back on that flight home, knowing the season was canceled, how tough was that to comprehend?
I remember that being like the longest day I've ever had. Like, I don't know. I just like couldn't believe it that like, oh, like season's over. That game you just played where you just like that point I'd had that last year was like the last point I'm ever gonna play in college. Like it's over, it's done. Like, it was just like a shock to me. I couldn't really. I was having such a difficult time processing it that like that day just like went on and on and on and on. Like I remember looking down at the clock and it was like 2:30, and I was like, okay, like I'm just gonna like go back in my own head, and I look down at the clock again. It's like 2:35. I'm just like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I remember after when we found out, the coaches asked everyone like if they wanted to talk about what happened, and like I remember everyone like kind of had something to say, but I remember I went up to the team and I was just like, guys, like I don't really know how I feel right now. I'll talk to you guys later. Like, yeah, that was definitely a really tough day.
And when you think about it, because your last moment before the season was canceled was that walk-off ace you had against BYU, sellout crowd, in when you guys came back to beat BYU in 5 sets, and had there not been the opportunity to come back in 2021, it would have been a pretty good legacy that people would have remembered you by, especially of how your last point was here at UH. But when you found out that there was an opportunity to come back for an additional year, what was sort of the discussion between you and Rado and Colton, James to come back, and also Jackson as well? All 5 of the seniors came back this year.
Yeah. The conversation was just kind of like, what do you guys want to do? And it mostly came down to like what is like the pro world looking like right now, like the market over there. And we knew the market was kind of done, not like done, but like definitely on the like a downward spiral as like things were getting shut down everywhere. And then I talked to my parents about it, and my parents said that they'd help me pay for it. And that was huge to have like them backing me for another year. But they did say I couldn't just go back and like get like another minor or go take basket weaving. So I'm doing a master's in finance now. And then talking to like Rado and Colton and Jackson and James, we all had talked to each other at some point. I found out really that Colton was going to come back, and then that made it just like a little bit easier for me to be like, okay, like yeah, let's pull the trigger, let's come back. And then I had talked to Rado, and Rado was leaning towards coming back, so I was like, I was fairly confident in in my decision. And then James said, I'm not going to come back, but I'm going to be your team manager. And I was like, all right, that sounds good.
Last summer, you were quite busy. You stayed here on the island, and you seemed to be everywhere. What all did you do over the course of the summer last year?
I had a pretty busy summer. At the beginning of the summer, beginning of season ending, I remember I did not leave my house very often because of quarantine, and I was just, like bummed out all the time. That lasted a couple weeks. But then my mom was also on the island, and she said, hey, do you want to come volunteer at this Malama Meals company over on the west side? And I was like, yeah, for sure. Let's do that. So I went out and started volunteering for Malama Meals out at UH West. And I was delivering about 200-ish meals a day, something like that. I got to push all my seats down in my little Hyundai Elantra and pack it up and then drive it all over the west side. I went to like Waianae. I went to North Shore one time. I went to town a couple times. Yeah. And then I also got connected with a family in Papakolea. They were in coordination with Malama Meals also. They would have food dropped off at their house and then disperse it from there to the community. That was great. And that Auntie Faith was a really nice person, and I'm really happy I got connected with them. And then I accidentally found a job as a project engineer. A friend of a friend let me know that that project manager was looking for a position, and I basically got his email and went in for my interview. And he basically was just like, here's what you're going to be doing. When can you start? And I was like, tomorrow? And he's like, all right, I'll see you tomorrow. And so I went from 24 hours before not knowing anything about working, and then 24 hours later to being a full-time project engineer, making what I like to call adult money. And it was really cool experience, and I learned a lot. I made a lot of good friendships out there, and I was doing working for a private contractor. I was working for Homeland Security, and we were renovating one of the buildings at Schofield Barracks. And yeah, that was an awesome experience, and I am really looking forward to my future in engineering. And once pro volleyball doesn't work out, I'm definitely gonna hit up that same guy and be like, hey, got a job.
Senior weekend, which was last week. Of course, it was a lot different. No fans in the stands, no lei as well. I mean, there were lei that were dropped off, but nothing as we've seen in the past with the fans and how they celebrate the seniors, whatever program it may be. When you got to see your brother introduce you part of the starting lineups, and then the video tribute your parents put together for you, just how special was that?
That was actually a really cool experience. I did not know that my brother was going to introduce me. Derek kind of let a hint about, he's like, did you see your brother? Because I accidentally walked in while they were going over some of the other guys' stuff. And I said no, and I was like, oh, okay. So I was expecting my brother to be after the game, but then I'm getting ready to go into the game, do a little pregame thing, and I see my brother yelling at the TV. So that was an awesome experience. Then my dad, I think me and my dad had a funny conversation after his video was sent. He's like, I was like, I don't think you really understood the assignment, but I think you did a good job nonetheless. Sending in a slideshow with voicing over behind it. No, he didn't really say much about me. He kind of said more about the university and thanking everyone for my experience here. And I did like that uniqueness to it, and he did a really great job. I tried to get a couple tears out, but they wouldn't come. I think James's family probably got me the closest tears. They had a really heartfelt speech for James, and just like them, I'm really proud of James.
You mentioned mom and dad. Of the two, who's the better cook?
Oh, mom, for sure. Dad's horrible cooking.
What's the one or two things that mom makes that anytime you go back home or she comes out to visit, what are you asking her to make?
Lasagna every time. Big lasagna fan.
There are not a lot of off days during the season, let alone throughout the year, and especially with how busy you are. But if you do have an off day, what are you going to do to enjoy it?
Something I've recently gotten into. Well, not gotten into. It's like super basic, but I like to watch the sunset. I have thought about it over the years, and I have not seen that many sunsets in Hawaii because we're always practicing, or I'm in the classroom, and I'll get a Bicky bike and ride down to Queens and find a nice little secluded spot and watch the sunset and then ride my bike home. That's probably one of my favorite pastimes right now. But or I'll call up Rado and make him go to the beach with me.
Speaking of Rado, of course, the Big West first teamer like you and odds-on favorite to be Big West Player of the Year, and on a very short list for ABCA National Player of the Year when those awards come out in the next couple of weeks. For this week, the Big West Conference Tournament, you guys are hosting it. What are you looking forward to this week?
I'm really looking forward to getting 2 more opportunities to battle, or one if not 2 more opportunities to battle in the stand, and to play in that like home environment with my brothers, with Rado, with Jacob, with Gage, with Colton and Chaz, Spiros, whoever's on the court with me. I think it's going to be an awesome experience, and I am super stoked to be the host.
When you guys travel, and this happens every time you guys go on the road to play a road match, when you do travel, what are a couple of things you must have in your carry-on bag?
Headphones, phone charger, and PB&Js.
Last one here for you, Pat. When this entire program has some of the best fans, if not the best fan base, and it's worldwide where Hawaii fans are, if you had a message for them, what would you like to tell them?
I've had an unreal experience at this university playing for the state, and the support I got from the community made it absolutely made it. I feel like I would not have had such good experience at any other school. And I think it boils all down to the support we get from the community, the aloha that is sent to us, and just walking around, just seeing aloha on the island. It absolutely made this experience special, and I'm extremely grateful for it.
This has been so much fun, Pat. We really appreciate the time you've given us today. Thank you so much, and best of luck this week in the Big West Championship.
Thanks, Tiff.
For Pat, as well as the rest of us here at ESPN Honolulu, I'm Tiff Wells saying thank you so much for joining us here on the 29th edition of ESPN Honolulu Fan Friday Top Story. Until next time, wear that mask, stay safe, and be socially distant.